This is News 6 Tonight.
Hey, welcome to News 6 Tonight. This is a special holiday edition of the show that streams every weeknight at 9 o'clock on clickorlando.com and News 6 Plus. You can find it as we usually tackle the daily headlines, but as we get knee deep in 2025, actually, I guess we're neck deep.
Yeah, we're neck deep now. It's almost over.
We are starting to analyze, Ginger, what stories interested our viewers the most. And one way we do that is by looking at clickorlando.com and seeing the stories that folks clicked in the most. Glad you're with us tonight. My name's Matt Austin.
I'm Ginger Gadsden, and we love using clickorlando.com as our best tool. It is the #1 website here in Central Florida, humble brag. And that's how we figure out what you are interested in. And that's why we're here. We're here to serve and make sure that you are up to date on all of those stories. And some of the bigger stories that have happened so far this year, one of the biggest ones is still happening in November. And that's what is so bizarre, because normally we can talk about stories that happened in January, February. November, people are more chill. We kind of see like the news cycle slows down a little bit because we get into the holiday season, a little less crimey. But this one is a story that made not just local headlines, not just national headlines, but it made international headlines. So our #6 story tonight is the death of Anna Kepner aboard the Carnival cruise ship Horizon. It happened in early November. She was found dead November 6th. The ship came back into port November 7th. This is a young lady, 18 years old, from Titusville, went to a Christian high school there. Her family is just distraught, and we've been finding out bits and pieces of information, but not from the legal authorities, not from the FBI, because they are the ones handling this because it happened in international waters, right, on a cruise ship. We're finding out mostly about what happened because of a custody battle between two families. It's the step parents and it's Anna's stepmom and her ex-husband who are battling it out in court. And we have a little clip just to give you an idea of what's happening so you can get up to date on what they're battling about.
Our understanding that because the cruise was in international waters, that the young child, not the 9-year-old, but the 16-year-old was allowed to drink. The teenagers were given their own room in which to stay. Just a lot of circumstances that showed that the mother in this case was not exercising appropriate supervision over this child.
There are videotapes on the ship that confirm that there was absolutely no drinking. So I'm not sure where that's coming from.
So you were hearing from Chantel Kepner, who is Anna's stepmom, and her ex-husband. And the 16-year-old they're talking about is Anna's stepbrother. He is the person who is the person of interest in this story and a possible suspect. And that's how we're finding out about this, because they are having this custody battle about this 16-year-old. And it is the most bizarre way that we found out about, okay, what happened to this young girl at sea? How is she dead? Because at first it's like, was there an accident at sea? Did she fall overboard?
We see a lot of suicides.
Exactly, exactly. And it turns out that through all of this in court hearings, we're finding out that she was found in her stateroom under her bed, wrapped in a blanket, covered by life jackets.
Yeah.
And it is just so painful for this family and the community too, because it's a tight-knit community in Titusville. They just want answers. They had a service for her not long ago where more than 600 people showed up. That's how beloved this young woman was, 18 years old, and had the rest of her life ahead of her. And it was just really, really cut short, but still a lot of interesting details in this story. We're also just learning that the cause of death, we learned it from her grandparents, that she was asphyxiated, which means strangled.
Right.
We still don't know from the FBI if that is the actual cause of death, but asphyxiation is the cause that the grandparents are saying, and some of the other court documents are saying that as well.
I don't know how you feel about this story, but I feel like it's going to be one of those where you get a look inside this family as the different reports come out, as possible legal cases take place.
Yeah.
It seems like a strange family dynamic. You already have this happening. By the way, that 16-year-old was placed with another person in the family because there's also a 9-year-old stepchild that it sounds like they're worried for their safety with this
Yeah,
case.
but the 16-year-old.
Meanwhile, on this cruise, Anna and that 16-year-old were sharing
The same
a
stateroom.
stateroom, which is, as someone with kids, that's not a normal scenario, though she's 18 years old and a full-grown adult.
And it seems like she would be the person who would be the responsible person in that stateroom. But if there
Yes.
is some sort of tension between an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old, you wouldn't put them in that same place together. And I think that's what they were saying in their allegations of underage drinking
Yeah.
happening, and who knows
And why
y-
these kids were together. Even
exactly.
though, again, she's 18, so technically, legally, she is an adult in the room. So it's going to be very interesting, and I think we're going to see inside this family what the dynamics are.
I think we're
Um,
starting to see that already with the custody
Yeah,
cases.
but as an FBI investigation,
Yeah.
these details have been very slow to be released and hard
Oh,
to get. So,
yeah.
so we'll just have to wait and see what happens as that progresses, that investigation. Okay, let's talk about our number 5 story now. This was an interesting case. We've probably never seen a story quite like this in the past in Florida because the rules in Florida have changed. The laws have changed about the preferred name you can call your child in school. So this comes with some parental concerns that teachers were calling students by names that they wanted to be called rather than the name that the parents gave them at birth. Of course, this has to do with the trans
With
issues
pronouns.
and pronouns and everything else, but it turned into, to make it legal, Florida lawmakers changed it into you have to call this student by the name that their parents gave them, or the parents have to sign off on it. Like, I have a daughter who is Olivia. Everybody calls her Lulu. So they had to send home a thing for me to sign that it's okay for her teacher to call her Lulu.
Yeah.
Well, so there's a teacher at Satellite High School in Brevard County, and they did not renew her teaching contract because she called a student by the name that student preferred. So the teacher's name is Melissa Calhoun. And there were, as soon as this came out, there were a number of protests out there, teachers speaking out for this woman. There were petitions. Nonetheless, she lost her job in Brevard County. And we didn't really get to hear from her in the beginning of this story. I'm sure lawyers were telling her, hey, you got to
Don't
keep
say
quiet.
a word. Yeah.
Keep your job. Don't say anything. And then we did get to hear an interview from Melissa Calhoun, the teacher who lost her job over the preferred names. So I want you to hear it from her perspective on all of this. Here she is.
It's never any teacher's intent to subvert policy for political radicalization or anything of that manner. But the reality is I can't go back and change that. So I just have to handle things with as much grace and dignity, and just try to exude Christ as much as I can moving forward.
So interesting to hear from Miss Calhoun. You and I both got to speak to her. You did a really great interview with her for our newscast. It became a national story.
Yeah.
And there were these two sides, parents' rights on one side, and then the ability for teachers to effectively do their job without worrying about saying something wrong and maybe losing their job.
Yeah.
So,
And this was a student she had known over the years, apparently, and called the student the name that the student wanted to be called from the very beginning.
right. And
And
she claims that this was not a politically motivated,
No.
she wasn't trying to take a stand. She
No.
just said, I was used to calling this person by this name, right?
Yeah. And that's what the student wanted. It's as if you were to ask me to call you something else. I've known you for 11 years. And if all of a sudden you wanted me to call you Maddie, I would kind of feel like, "Oh, I might forget that, or I'll just call you Matt." Is that the name that I've always called you,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just one of those cases where people loved this teacher. She was very popular at the school, And the students protested many days to try and save her job and to try and make sure that she came back, but that didn't happen.
Very loud meetings took
Oh
place for
yeah.
the school board
People were
there as
fired up
people
about it.
lobbied for this teacher. But it's interesting to try to understand how it all came about, because if you think about, there's a teacher, there's that student who wants to be called this name, and then there's a class.
Mhm.
You wonder how it got out. Another student must have reported that the
Or
a
maybe
different
said it
name
to a
was being
parent.
call. Maybe.
Who knows?
But
Who
yeah,
knows?
interesting.
That's what
There's
we still don't
still a
know.
little
Yeah.
fogginess in all of this, but we'll see. Well, that is the update on that story, but it was interesting to watch in 2025.
Another interesting story that happened this year is one that is very painful for a lot of people in our community, because if you were here in 2016 and lived through the Pulse nightclub massacre, where 49 people were mowed down in that nightclub, it's something you will never forget. And the nightclub is it's still there, plastered with all of these pictures and candles, and it's a place where people go to remember their loved ones, and even people who didn't know anyone there, they go to pay their respects. Well, one of the symbols that was painted early on outside of that nightclub was a rainbow crosswalk, because Pulse was known to be a place where the LGBTQ community could go and find a safe haven, and family and friends would come and gather. And you found a lot of people who were killed inside Pulse nightclub were even parents of some of the people who were there, and just friends hanging out and having a good time. Well, that crosswalk was very important and symbolic to the 49 angels, as they are called, and their family members who are left here to deal with the pain. Well, recently a Florida law changed, and it said that according to FDOT, the crosswalk no longer met state standards. It was a distraction. And just in the middle of the night, all of a sudden, this crosswalk was painted over. Here's Governor Ron DeSantis describing why.
When you have a state crosswalk or a state road, the law in the state of Florida is now that there's not markings, or that's not going to be used for those purposes.
And it came to be that it was described as sort of like a hazard or a safety issue on the road. And that wasn't the only crosswalk that was repainted. There were several of them in the community that did not meet this new state standard now, that were painted over. And so they painted it that black and white. Controversy ensued. Other people came, protesters came and repainted it or chalked the rainbow color over it. And then again, the state comes back and they paint over it again. We're trying to figure out how much money are they spending on paint, all of it, just to get it redone to rainbow or redone to black and white, where it's
Between
not a
the
distraction.
chalk bill
Yeah, all of it,
and
all
the
of it.
pressure washing.
It's just one of those stories where your heart goes out to the families of the people who came to pay their respects, and they want to see that rainbow crosswalk, and they can't figure out, well, why this? Why was this taken away? And it's because of that new law that's now in place, saying that it is a distraction. It doesn't meet the state standards for crosswalks. And there you see it. And it's the back and forth that continues to go between the state and the community as they continue to build that memorial, and that area will be raised pretty soon so they can start to build a memorial. I believe 2026 is when they're going to actually do some movement on the dirt and get the memorial they finally agreed on done.
It's been interesting, and even months after this story took place, people were still getting arrested for going out there and putting chalk into the crosswalk there. It does, as
those
a
new
news
signs were put
anchor
out, yeah.
and a father, it worries me that people run out there and try to put chalk. That seems like
That's
is a
very
dangerous
dangerous, yeah.
situation, and it's
And
a
also,
very
when
busy
it
road.
rains, it's going to just wash away. But I think those people were just trying to make a point.
Right.
And
It's a
to the
political
governor's point,
protest, yeah.
you have to follow the law. That is the new law, and
Yeah,
that's
and so legally, so that was the first one.
Yeah.
That was the benchmark where they came in and they painted over the rainbow.
But
And as you
several
said,
more.
many more. There was Daytona International Speedway had a checkered crosswalk, like the checkered flags out
Yeah.
there, and they painted that over. And they painted over several other ones. I think there was one that had to do with veterans and so they definitely didn't want it to seem like
They singled out
that they were
Pulse.
singling
Yeah.
out the gay community or the Pulse
Mhm.
nightclub. That was the first one. Now, legally, if they were singling out a specific group, that would have been tossed down in court for sure.
Yeah.
So,
But I think people who were in the community when all of this happened and people who lost a loved one or a friend in that nightclub that night were hoping that maybe you could make this one exception because 49 people died.
yeah, and it was part of a memorial. So that was a huge story in 2025, and that one is still coming along.
It really
We'll see
is.
if there's a resolution to that anytime by the time we get to 2026. We have more big stories coming for you after the break, including we're in Florida. Of course, one is going to have to do with a gator. We'll be right back.
Yeah, and he got the link from the show just a little while ago, I think. So we'll make sure we have that for News 6 tonight. Hey, thanks for stopping by. We know you're busy, but news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
That's right. And this is News 6 Tonight, where we leverage this entire busy newsroom with our community correspondents, our producers, our content desk, and then we filter through that. We have a casual conversation about the news that impacts Central Florida.
Yeah, we live here in the community, and we rely on you for our neighborhood network because you're our eyes and ears as well, and we can't do it without you.
So you can watch us all over the place, YouTube, News 6 Plus app, and clickorlando.com. While you're here, feel free to engage. Let us know who you are and where you're from.
Welcome back to News 6 Tonight, everyone, a special edition, as we like to call it, as we count down so far the top 6 stories of 2025. It has been quite a year. We just gave you the other half of that. We gave you the bottom 3. Now we're going for the top 3, and they keep building and building and building, and they get even more interesting.
This one is the Florida version
Of the
of a
bunch.
top story
Yeah.
for sure. So a couple is out canoeing. This is in an area near Lake Kissimmee. It's called Tiger Creek, right at the mouth there. And they are apparently canoeing over what you would call a large bull alligator. This thing is 11 feet long.
That's large.
11 feet 4 inches. This is the couple, they're out there.
Just out there
having a
together,
good time,
paddling, yeah.
enjoying the outdoors, and this giant gator somehow knocks over their canoe, flips them into the water.
Somehow, that thing's 11 feet long.
But still,
Yeah,
if
I
you
know.
wanted to, if you
Yeah.
could grab onto it, you could pull one over, but it must have really whipped it. And
Yeah.
this is a sad story.
It really is.
Cynthia Dykem from Polk County, she ends up getting after he flips this, she gets attacked by this gator and gets pulled away right in front of her husband. I mean, I can't imagine trying to live with this after the fact. This freaked a lot of people out because I have lived in Florida for a long time. They always tell you, look, if you don't mess with a gator, you don't step on a gator.
Yeah.
It's not mating season.
Nothing to worry about.
You're going to be fine. Well, hearing this, it almost sounds like the gator was hunting them. Now, it certainly could have been more of a they ran into, they flip,
It
and
may
then
have
she falls on
mistaken
top
her
of the
canoe
gator.
for a lady gator. I don't know.
Who knows what happened, but it was definitely a very rare story, and it creeped a lot of people out. In fact, we have the 911 call from when this happened. Let's listen to a piece of it.
Gator grabbed her out of the canoe. He tried to fight the gator off. We're at the last place he saw her.
Yeah, so very quick there, but it said the gator grabbed her out of the canoe. So I have seen video where guys are fishing and they have the GoPro mounted,
Yeah.
and you'll see a gator pop up
Mm-hmm.
into the very rare, but weird stuff. So I don't really, we still haven't gotten a ton of answers on
Yeah.
this, but I just think about that husband who was out enjoying a day
Oh
with
my
his wife,
gosh.
and then he watches as they flip over this
Oh, I
gator
can't
do a
imagine.
death roll and then pull his wife away. And just a sad story out in Kissimmee. Obviously, it captured the nation's attention when it happened.
Yeah.
And there were people out there that we had interviewed in this area who were like, "Oh yeah, it freaks me
I've
out."
never heard of something like that
Mhm.
happening before. And you're right. We do tell you it's like they call it don't molest the gators. Just don't bother them, don't harass them, and they won't bother you. And this is a case where something happened, and we will probably never know what set that gator off. But it is an unusual thing, and people still enjoy the Florida waterways. They enjoy canoeing, kayaking, because that's what you come to this great state for. And you just have to live with the gators and live among them. We just
Yeah.
have just
I
become
I
accustomed
take
to it.
my 9, 10-year-old daughter out.
Yeah.
We canoe at Wekiva Springs. We go past giant gators. So the thought of one of them
I
reaching
know.
into the boat with
Yeah.
their
But
mouth
your
and
heart, yeah, and
kicking
your
it
heart
over,
goes out to
it's
her husband who
terrifying.
had to witness that whole
Yeah.
thing. All right. Our number two story actually started in 2024, but the trial of the result of it was supposed to happen over the summer. And we're talking about the death of 13-year-old Madeline Soto. She's an Osceola County girl who was a middle school student. And the more you peel the layers of that onion of this story, you just when you think it couldn't get any worse, it gets worse every single time. So this 13-year-old girl was supposed to be dropped off at her middle school, Hunters Creek Middle School in Osceola County, and it turns out she never made it that morning. And she wasn't reported missing for a couple of days later. It was in February she was reported missing, and then March they found her body. March 1st of this year is when they found her, or last year is when they found her body. The person who they say is responsible for her death is the mom's boyfriend, Stephen Stearns. We've said that name over and
There he is.
over again. Uh, and he was living in the house with Maddie and her mom, not just living in the house, but apparently, by all accounts, sharing a bedroom and sometimes a bed with this 13-year-old girl. And the stories just get worse and worse every time you think about it. Our investigator, Mike DeForest, has a 6-part series on justice for Maddie, and it is a must watch because you get to hear from the mom, you get to hear from Stephen Stearns, and you get to hear from just about everybody who did not protect this young girl. And she just needed someone to step up and speak for her. But the trial was supposed to start this summer. We got wind that Stephen Stearns didn't want to go to trial. He took a plea deal. So now he is in prison for life without the possibility of parole. Maddie's dad was in court the day that he was sentenced, but Maddie's mom was not. Let's hear from Maddie's dad in court that day.
You're weak, you're a coward, you're a sneak thief. You crept into a family and took advantage and exploited them when they were weak.
Yeah, you took advantage of a family and exploited them when they were weak. Now, people are asking, what's going to happen to Madeline's mom? And by all accounts, nothing.
You're looking at it.
She's cooperated with authorities and police, but again, Stephen Stearns in prison for murder, sexual battery, will never see the light of day again without the possibility of parole. I was in the court the day that he was sentenced, and he was saying that Stephen Stearns is like, I miss her every day.
It was a weird moment, maybe the weirdest moment.
It
of
was
the
a moment
year.
where cops who were in court wanted to jump over the bench and do
Yeah,
something.
if you want
that they
more
did.
on
Yeah.
that, our Mike DeForest did
Great story. Yeah.
amazing analysis of that whole thing. Hey, when we come back from a break, we are going to talk about the most clicked on story of the year on clickorlando.com. Welcome to News 6 Tonight. We are so thankful that you're joining us here wherever you found us.
Yeah, you know what this tells me? If you have made this your new streaming destination, it tells me you're smart, also good looking, because you chose to watch the news in a different way. That makes you really smart. Anybody can give you the news from a teleprompter or an old newspaper. We do it in a fresh new way.
That's right. So check us out wherever you like to stream. We have this app for your TV, News 6 Plus. You can find it on Roku and Amazon and whatever your smart TV is cooking. So thank you. We would love to hear your comments down
Oh my
below.
gosh. Yeah.
And then we'll show them.
Yeah, we will. News 6 Plus. The plus is you.
Ooh.
Just so everyone is clear, yes or no, did Mr. Rodriguez Zavala have, quote, back, neck, or similar physical conditions?
What you mean? He was fine. He was disabled.
That's what the ride sign says.
No.
Some tough questioning from our investigator, Mike DeForest. The most clicked on story of the year was the death on Stardust Erasers, that brand new Epic Universe ride where this gentleman right here, Kevin Rodriguez Zavala, died in September on that ride. This captured the nation's attention, and we are still trying to figure out exactly what happened to him on Stardust Racers. Thank you for watching this special edition of News 6 Tonight. You can always find us streaming on clickorlando.com.
Bye.